Hey guys, what's up? Prasheen and I are just making our way out of the park. We are at the Sable Hide this morning, and we just wanted to give you a quick summary of our trip and some of the pros and cons of visiting the Kruger in what is the rainy season, or also known as green season. I think we've had a very good 5 days in the park in terms of the photography we've had and the sightings we've had. But we just wanted to give you some pros and cons on why traveling during this period, which is February, March of the South African summer, is has both the good and the bad parts. I guess one of the first pros of being in the park during the green season is that it's much less busier than the winter peak season. Um, when it's dry, the park is considered to be at its prime for game viewing, especially big game viewing. So a lot of people book in the winter months, so June, July, and August, and avoid the wet season because they want to chase big five sightings and things like that. So it is a lot less busy. I guess it's the least busy that I've seen it, and I think one of the contributing factors is there's very few international travelers in the park, so it's only South Africans who are traveling, and schools have started again, so it's not easy for families and stuff to travel. um, so it makes the park a little bit less busy, and then you have the roads to yourself. You have less pressure as you drive, um, which makes the experience a bit more enjoyable.
Cool. My pro for visiting in the rainy season is, um, as Pranesh mentioned, the park is much more lush, and grass tends to be overgrown. And with the overgrown grass comes much more insects, which will attract much more birds. I think on this trip, I've ticked off maybe close to about 17 new species. I think Pranesh is close to about 20 species now.
Yeah.
And from a bird photography point of view, it's also with more insects means more birds, which means more opportunities to actually photograph the birds, especially in the woodland areas where the birds were actually perching quite well. And obviously, with the long grass means better green bokeh and clearer backgrounds, so it adds a very artistic feel to your photography. I think as well with what we've noticed is with the lakes and the dams and like the small rivers being quite full, we've been able to spot a much more water birds as well. Given that they are sitting much closer to us now or much higher up on the banks, and that's been a pro for us for taking off new birds and also providing us with better and much closer water bird photography moments.
Yeah, I think just to add, I mean, you have to be cognizant of the fact of, they are migratory birds that come into the park, and they do come in, at the back end of the dry season, so October, November, but they still stay till late March and early April. So stuff like the European rollers that we've seen tons of are still in the park in the green season. So it's good to see species that would otherwise not be here in June, July, and August. think the last plus that we get, I mean, the weather is still relatively good. It's held out for us, so we've had five days in the park, of which only today has been a bit cloudy. The rest of the day started off misty and then improved through the day and got very hot. So one of the disadvantages of being in the park in the winter is if you're doing like the night drives or the early morning drives, they are very cold to be on a open vehicle for. So it does make doing some of the night drives and the early morning drives a bit more bearable. And we did a couple sunset and night drives which were quite enjoyable, and we saw a lot of stuff on as well. So it's one of the advantages you can take when you're in the green season.
I think one of the biggest downsides of actually visiting the park while it's in the rainy season is given the fact that the grass is kind of overgrown at the moment, spotting larger animals such as lions and elephants and stuff like that, it's much more difficult to actually see them, and then number two, to get actually a photograph of them. I think we've only seen one lion on this trip, and I think that's one of the biggest contributing factors is that the grass is overgrown, so they find it difficult to hunt, and they tend to be hidden away in the sort of lusher, longer strands of grass. Another sort of point to add to that is, given that in the summer months when there is a lot of rain, animals tend to stay away from the water holes, given that there are other sources or maybe smaller puddles of water that is available in the longer grass, so they don't tend to actually come out and drink water at the water holes, where in the drier seasons they'll be much more motivated to actually come out and drink at the water holes, given that that's the only source of water there is for them.
And then I think the second con to visiting the park in the wet season or the green season is that it does rain a lot. We initially had planned to come visit in the first week of February, and then we shifted the trip out by 3 weeks because our coronavirus numbers were still quite high, and that actually was worked in our favor a little bit because they had the cyclone come through the park, Cyclone Eloise, I think it was, in the first week of February, and there were a lot of there was a lot of rain, and that caused some flash flooding and things like that. A lot of the roads are still not open since that first week in February, because they're keeping the roads closed so that we don't damage them by driving over them too soon. And that did make getting around the park a little bit more difficult, but with some pre-planning you can actually get on some of the routes that you would want to get on, and still enjoy the bush while you're here.
Yeah, and then maybe lastly, another con would be, given that there are a lot of insects that are attracted by the long grass. I think Pranesh can speak more than me, but we've been attacked many times by flies. In the car, mainly biting flies. It normally happens when you sort of pull up to a spot you watch, do some bird watching at, or spotting some larger animal.
Yeah, any sighting. Yeah.
And then
you stay still. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they sort of tend to bite you, or they tend to like congregate in your car, given that it's much more cooler in your car. So I think that's one con just to be aware of. Normally, when you do drive off, they sort of escape, or they leave you alone. But there's nothing to worry about. It's only, I think, they'll sort of attack you in the car when you are back at camp, given that there is like those mosquito gratings. They don't really get into your rooms and stuff like that. So it's just the car that's the issue.
Yeah, I think use your tabard or your peaceful sleep, and make the most of it while you can. I think otherwise we've had a great trip. I think, Prashin, this was your first trip, so I don't know what you'll give it out of 10. I think this was a good solid 8 out of 10 trip. The leopard sighting pushed it up there. There were a few quieter days or quieter roads that we took, but generally when we did morning drives and afternoon drives, we had really good sightings, and the birding was terrific. I mean, I've added, like Prasheen said, I've added I think close to 20 new species just in these 5 days. So I'm now sitting at close to 340 species of my own. Prasheen is now sitting probably close to 250.
250, 300 by now. Yeah.
So Prasheen is catching up quickly, and he'll probably surpass me. He's got some species that he's seen that I haven't seen. But otherwise, I think a terrific trip to the Kruger. Great photo opportunities that hopefully we've made the most of. When we go back, we'll review them. And yeah, we're going to make our way out now. We've got one more day in Dahlstrom on the way back to Johannesburg. And it was a good trip in the green season, in the wet season. Today is the first sort of very rainy day we've had. We've had a few showers here and there, but otherwise nothing to complain about. So yeah, if you do get a chance to do a green season trip, I think take it just for experiencing it and seeing the park while it's so green and lush. I think it's something else to take in.